Passing through this morning, August 29th, several bluecoats who were killed last evening are lying scattered here and there unburied. Things begin to look real now, and we were pushed on rapidly but cautiously. When we reached Gainesville, about 10 a.m., the whole corps is excited, and the rumor is circulated that the Yankee cavalry were driven through this little place a few hours since by our advance. The sun is intensely hot, and we are jaded and parched with heat. Still, we go on. Sounds of war are distinctly heard in front. We are told about midday to load our guns, and this was my first loading with intent to kill. I trembled with excitement and, I may add, with fear, for I was never very brave, and Captain Mitchell had the kindness to give me some advice about loading and keeping cool when we should get under fire. Here we go now, through the woods, deployed in line of battle. About a half-mile distant, one of the enemy's batteries is posted looking for some antagonist, and our brigade is told to advance towards this terrible-looking affair and afterwards to march by the right flank into some woods nearby and wait for further orders. Now we go right at them, they see us, and here come the shells crashing through the trees back of us and plowing up the open field over which we are going. After marching until about 3 p.m., we passed over ground that the enemy had been driven from during the morning, and our brigade was ordered again to load. Oh, how scared I felt. If I could only stay out of that fight with honor, how gladly would I have done so. But I was today to smell gunpowder for the first time on a field of battle. Here we go through the woods, guns at a trail. Now we deploy in line of battle in a field beyond, double quick. Now across the railroad track, suffocating, nearly dead from the heat of the sun. Now double quick across a plowed field, a fence right ahead and beyond that about 600 yards. A Yankee battery in full blast, belching forth flame, smoke, and bombshells, and worse than all, right at us. On, goes our line, right on, as if we are going to charge those fearful engines of war. And how the shells scream and whistle, everyone over our heads. Close forward, steady dress to the right, give way on the left, don't crowd up the center. And one of those enormous projectiles bursts immediately in front of the regiment, appearing to cover us all with dust. The two men beside me are knocked over and covered with dirt. Though stunned, neither are hurt, and on we go with the whining and whizzing and banging and 100 contradictory orders until we reach the fence aforementioned, when we all lie down according to instructions and await further developments. I was very much frightened, and I am sure I wasn't the only one. Although the Yankees cannot see us in this position, yet they keep feeling for us, which is anything but pleasant. Further developments having been made upon our left, our services can be dispensed with, and we are withdrawn for the evening while Jackson, Hood, and others gain the Battle of Groveton. And I must confess I feel much safer and easier in mind and body while I listen to the volleys of musketry swelling in the distance, then becoming more distant until the outbursting of yells of our brave troops in the distance gives us assurance that all for us is well. Night closes around us, enveloping in a shroud of darkness the dead, the dying, and the sleeping armies. The next day, the memorable 30th of August, upon which we gained a complete victory over the boastful Popa, we rose betimes and remained in line of battle all day until about 4:00 p.m., meanwhile the second battle of Manassas progressing furiously in our front and on our left. About 4 p.m., when we had given up the idea of our being wanted today, one of General Longstreet's aides came over the field as if life and death depended on his speed, as verily it did. How well the men knew what his presence indicated, and he had scarcely been recognized before they had each one regained his musket and were arranging themselves in order along the line. We had driven the Yankees back on the left and also on the right, and it was for Longstreet's fresh troops to press the center. Here we go, closing up and double quick. Now, right in front, marching by the flank so as to avoid the woods and other obstacles. Now we are over a fence, and the battery which we are to charge is right ahead. Again, we form in line, and now dashing through a cornfield. The bullets whistle through the leaves and ears and send many a brave comrade to his last account. But we have no time to think. Such is the excitement, such the feeling with which I am inspired, that I rush on with the rest, completely bewildered and scarcely heeding what takes place around. And now the bullets strike the ground in front of us, and comrades are falling pretty fast all around. I catch a glimpse of the battery. It's on a hill, and as we approach at a double quick all along the line, the very earth seems to open and belch forth fire and smoke and balls. Back. Down the hill rolls the brigade, which had immediately preceded us. In utter rout and confusion, some shouting for us to go back, others to advance, some to lie down. Still on, we went double quick all the time, right over the flying broken brigade and up the hill, volley after volley, broadside after broadside, comes crashing through our thinned ranks. Our colonel, the brave old Skinner, on this day the bravest of the brave, 40 or 50 yards ahead, is cutting down the Yankee gunners who defend their pieces to the last. Fire rings out along the brigade, our muskets rattle out a volley along the whole line, and I find myself among dismounted cannons, broken caissons, bleeding horses, the dead and the dying. Our gallant Skinner comes reeling towards me, bleeding profusely from 3 severe wounds. "Jack," said he, "bear me witness that I was the first man on that battery." I set to work to bind up the flow of blood which was streaming from his arm, which was torn from wrist to elbow by a bullet. The colonel is soon carried from the field, and I turn to look for the brigade, which had in the meantime borne away to the left. I fall in with about 50 or 60 of ours who have become detached by that same leftward move. We all league together and drive through the woods a party of Yankees who keep up an annoying fire, and now we take possession of a rising knoll to the front and left where many of our men have gathered to play upon the advancing enemy. From this knoll, although constantly engaged, we have a splendid view of the plain on our front and to the right. Some 500 or 600 yards distant is a dense thicket or wood which must be filled by our troops. In front of this wood and directly in front of our position, the whole plain, as far as the eye can reach, is covered with the blue of the enemy, some brigades flying in disorder, others advancing in serried lines with the stars and stripes innumerable floating in the breeze, officers vainly endeavoring to rally their wavering ranks, furiously dashing up and down the lines. Then little parties of flying Federal soldiers rallying are again and again led to the charge, while our troops may be seen again and again on the advance. While their wild, fearful, victorious yells give renewed confidence to us, strike terror to the souls of the Yankees, and send them reeling back in disorder over the field. This appears to be their center, but a large portion of it is already in irremediable confusion. Yet still, the shell and bullets rain thick and fast around, and, as they speed along, sing and whistle the death song of hundreds of the fallen. Oh, the horrid scenes around us! Brains, fractured skulls, broken arms and legs, and the human form mangled in every conceivable and inconceivable manner. And now the enemy seem gathering for fresh resistance, perhaps for an onset themselves by which they may hope to retrieve the fortune of the day and check our advance. Yes, here they come. 4 or 5 lines of fresh troops deploy in the open plain in our front and direct their charge directly against that crop of woods off to our right. Oh, this is a splendid sight, and one which the disinterested might well go in raptures over. Line after line of the best of the Yankee army steadily advances, and as orderly as if on parade, and it seems as through there was a slight cessation in the frightful roar of the artillery and musketry as these well-drilled troops press on over the blood-red plain. At every step they take, they see the piles of wounded and slain, and their feet are slipping in the blood and brains of their comrades. Shells burst among them, and a desultory musketry fire helps to thin their ranks, but still on they press, closing up steadily, splendidly. Many of their officers may be plainly distinguished riding beside their brigades and divisions, while the stars and stripes boastfully flaunt out defiance in the advance of each regiment. On they come over dead and dying. The order is given, charge, and at a double quick the foremost lines charge against the woods. They are scarcely 50 or 80 yards distant when a volume of smoke almost obscures the woods from our sight, and, volley after volley thunders against those ill-fated columns. In vain does line after line advance at a run. Torn and bleeding, they are hurled back, scattered, routed in confusion over the plain. The fugitives will not be rallied, but, broken and dismayed, are pursued by our victorious troops until darkness closes around. The enemy were now in complete rout, and darkness was setting in. Upon the next day, having buried our dead, we moved forward on the track of the enemy.